Howdy folks, Keywii here, and welcome back to Suzerain, a safe space in which to be awesome, where we are, not having the best time with our wealths and our budgets, but we're trying desperately to make sure that everything goes good. So, let's take a look at the news. The Radical has more things to say. Everyone stand up, shocking misogynist rally, police chases with the protesters, Clashes between Swordlish riot police and protesters were continuing late into Tuesday night after the authorities moved to clear Liberty Square in Dyer, using tear gas, batons, and shields. As nationwide protests continue, the tendency of the police forces to use force, aka police force, is increasing every day. After the deployment of thousands of new police officers, the tensions in the streets seem to have increased, and violence became a daily occurrence from both sides. As police keep clashing with civilians of this nation in the first months of Rayne's term, Sordland must finally realize that this administration is doomed. More batons, more shields, and more bullets will not stop the people from speaking up. They're a little less radical than I thought they would be. Read the report from Estord. Young sword member found decapitated. The Estord Police Department has found a decapitated body in an abandoned house where the victim was later identified as Krug Lienke, a high school teacher and member of local Young Swords Cultural Center. The victim was discovered to be tortured with hot iron rods before his tongue was cut off. Police suspect the Red Youth are responsible for the incident. The incident has not been made public. Good, so now both sides are kind of shit. What's going on with the Young Swords here? Morbol mine disaster. Oh, this is new. This is new and different. A coal mine has collapsed in Morbol. Emergency response teams were dispatched immediately. Due to the sheer size of the disaster, additional manpower and supplies were requested for nearby cities. Initial investigation shows that an underground fire has started due to the neglect in working situations by Nedam Mining Group. Current death toll is at 82 and counting. Yikes. Not a fan of anything of what's going on. NFP on reforms. Workers' Rights Bill near completion. The Worker Rights Act of 1954, proposed by Alban Clavin and supported by the Ministry of Health, Pascal Benawal, is being proposed for the first draft review. Voices from labor unions showed strong signs of support. A session dedicated to the bill in the Assembly proved contentious. The people that form the backbone of the Swordlish economy will finally be fully protected by extensive law, Katarina Horton said, receiving both cheers and boos. Ban youth organizations. Giddy. Read the report from Holsword, NFP on reforms. Casero Akibener, leader of NFP, has announced today that NFP is completely against the threshold reform. National Front Party is National Ultra-Conservative. Yeah. He specifically emphasized that this would lead to unwanted elements entering the Assembly, and he is outright against any changes to the 10% threshold. Trying to play both sides really just does not work for anyone. What kind of small town we got over here? Toriak. Alright. Ban youth organizations. In order to stop the operations of youth organizations potentially links to the instability. Alright. An investigation on the influence of Young Swords and Red Youth organizations on the post-assassination unrest has concluded. Both organizations haven't officially organized or called for illegal action, but several low to mid-level leaders from both have links to insightful actions that led to deaths, injuries, and instabilities. This allows us to ban the organizations. Ban the Young Swords, ban the Red Youth and the Young Swords. Stability Order of 1954. It's a situation where both sides have, like, maybe one side did something wrong at the beginning, but now both are bad type thing. So we can't pick a side in this situation. It doesn't matter if I was once with the young swords growing up, which will definitely be addressed, but it is a situation where both are causing problems, so we have to deal with both. I'm leaning very heavily towards 3. Nationalist political organization with alleged connections to a number of armed attacks against the Swordlish government. It was bad. Red Youth. Alleged connections to a number of insurgent attacks against the Swordlish government. Founded in 1923 by a group of revolutionaries who are blah 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 blah. Blah 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 blah. Blah 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 blah. Ban them both. This is gonna have unjust justifications. That indefinitely banned the Red Youth and the Young Swords organization in Sordland. No one liked that. Administration announces ban on Young Swords and Red Youth. Effective immediately, the administration has announced a ban on the anti-government organizations Young Swords and Red Youth as a response to the recently escalated political tensions. The ban also states that it is strictly illegal and forbidden to carry symbols, clothing, and anything that can cause a person to be identified as a Young Sword or a Red Youth member. Any persons who do not abide by the new law will be risking an at least 2-year sentence, depending on the severity of the crime. NFP leader Thing have strongly opposed the ban. Yeah, well, fuck the both of you. Lockhaven Times. Political freedoms restricted. 2 of the most popular and symbolic political youth organizations have just been banned by the president of Sordland. The news comes out of nowhere when the administration made an official announcement blaming the instability, deaths, and violence caused in the past months on both organizations who have just been stripped of their rights to operate by the Ministry of Interior. The leaders of both organizations have made joint statement against the decision and said that even though their beliefs are different, their right to express their political opinion shouldn't have been taken away. Maybe you shouldn't have been violent then. The economy went down because of that decision, and I'm aware of that. It is a rare sight to see 2 sides of the political spectrum come together as President Rayne is receiving criticisms about restricting the freedom of political expression. The expectation now is that calm will return to the country, with all sides taking a step back to heal wounds. Yeah, I'm aware of the situation. I'm aware that was a bad thing to do. I'm aware of fucking everything. That doesn't change the fact that everything is bad right now. Split decree from the president caused political organizations to be banned effective immediately. To restore order, the emergency decree declares the Red Youth to be an illegal criminal organization. The group is to be disbanded and all its members will be arrested effective immediately. Yeah, same thing there. Limited human rights. Look, you have human rights, just fucking stop being violent then. Stop attacking people. Read the report from Molsword. Okay. Upon receiving the order, thousands of police officers conducted cease and desist operations against the Red Youth and Young Sword organizations. Our forces closed hundreds of organizational offices and affiliated businesses all around the country. Additionally, judges have given orders to block all bank accounts and freeze all assets. Dozens of peaceful protests from the members of each organization were forcefully dispersed. 2 separate shootouts, one in Jen, and another in Lockhaven, have lightly wounded 5 officers who are being treated in hospitals. Can't read the whole thing. Most of the organizational capacity of both entities have ceased, but cleanup operations continue. All remaining elements resisting the order are now being considered as violating the law and being arrested. So the ramifications are such. First of all, there's political instability in the country. What just happened was, people will say that this is an act against free speech and against human rights and against their right to peacefully protest. Well, that is certainly true in some aspects, but the issue comes from the fact that there is so many problems that things just need to stop for a second. Everyone needs to stop doing stuff. Everyone needs to take a step back, consider just anything for a moment, stop instigating, stop arguing, stop everything, and just take like a month or two to just let things calm down. And then maybe when both sides stop being fucking stupid, they'll eventually realize, oh shit, we can do things differently and become better as a result. Finalization of the drafted constitutional changes. I was walking to my office, since today was the day to edit and make the final changes for the proposal to change the Constitution of Sordland. The Reform Committee finally bore tangible results, and the draft of the changes was about to be presented to me. I walked in the marble corridors of the palace, thinking about the huge decisions I was going to take. At the entrance to my office, my secretary Olivia greeted me. "Good morning, Mr. President." "Good morning, Olivia." "How are you today, sir?" "I'm perfectly fine. I'm about to make stressful decisions, so I'm not feeling that great. I feel better now that I've seen... Nah, I'm not gonna go down the cheating husband path. You know, it's not what I'm about. "Sorry to hear." She paused before taking my coat. It looked like she had something on her mind. "Mr. Rayne, can you give me a hint about your reform plans? If you ask me, taking away the judge's immunity is long overdue, but it might anger a lot of people in these halls." "You'll find out with the rest of Sordland, sweetheart." Maybe if you didn't say the last bit." "I'll take that into consideration. Nothing's been decided yet. That's none of your business. I'll take that into consideration." "I hope you'll keep me informed. I'll take your coat now." Olivia left to hang up my coat. I entered my office and sat down. Not long after, Peter, Lucian, and Nia arrived. Greetings. "Good morning, Mr. President."
Good morning, good morning. Time to finally get this proposal going."
Peter placed the draft in front of me. "After your modifications, we will be starting the process. Can we go over each of the points that are in discussion for the draft?" "Well, apart from the first two sections of decreasing the Supreme Court's authority and limiting the presidential vetoes, nothing else has been agreed on unanimously. We could start talking about Section 3. This is about the impeachment process of the president. Currently, in cases of high treason and breaking the Constitution, the Supreme Court may impeach and try the president. Most reformists want the impeachment to be initiated by the Assembly. They think they do not have any power over potential rogue presidents that would abuse their power. Not sure if it is correct to chastise the president this much, though. The Assembly should have oversight over the president. The Assembly should have oversight over the president. It is the most democratic institution. Now, I don't want the situation to come where the Assembly essentially makes the president a puppet. The president does need power. The person in charge does need to be able to make the leadership calls that they need to, but also there needs to be checks and balances. You need a little of both. You need power on both sides so that they can check each other. You don't want one or the other more powerful.
The law is particularly dangerous for you in this case. We will be going against the old guard, and if we prove to be successful in the Assembly, they'll be looking for anything they can declare unconstitutional to tackle you. All they need is Supreme Court to impeach you."
"What if we don't succeed? The court can have me impeached for this." Maybe reforms are not a great idea after all. We should define a better impeachment process. We could even remove impeachment altogether. No, definitely not that one. We could define a better impeachment process. Should. Yes, I will be collaboratively working on the specifics. Section 4. This is regarding the appointment of ministers. Currently, the president is free to appoint anyone from the members of the Assembly. No one else is involved in the process. There's definitely a demand to involve the Assembly in the process. That is going a bit too far. We could introduce a confidence vote. I agree we should involve the Assembly more in the process. We could introduce a confidence vote. That was my suggestion as well.
I'm sure the reformists would completely support that.
The fifth section is about our infamous electoral threshold. Many reformists want to lower the threshold as much as possible. Mr. Richter and the PFJP definitely definitely wants to see change on this topic. They find our 10% threshold to be anti-democratic, which is something I also agree with.
Yes, this is a delicate matter. The party, and I mean not even Albin, wants us to change the threshold. They think that this would destroy our party in the long term.
Not wrong. The 10% threshold is what allowed us to control half the assembly with only 30% majority in the elections. The high threshold is the reason why Swordlish politics has become so isolated. We should definitely work to decrease the threshold for better representation. Do you think it would really hurt the party? This is out of the question. Do you think it would really hurt the party? I think this is a national matter, Mr. Rayne, not a partisan one.
It is a matter of both when we have the Communist Party and the Workers' Party of Bludia getting more than 5% vote in the last elections. Decreasing the threshold might mean opening their way into the assembly.
Of course, this would also mean that the USP might lose its majority in the assembly, sir. USP. United Sordland Party. If our own democracy is the reason for our downfall, we will have to accept it. Don't worry, with these reforms, we will be even more popular. We can't just give away our majority like that. We can't allow communists to enter the assembly. Now, that one I'm not particularly for. I'm not feeling for right now. Now, don't worry, with these reforms, we will be even more popular. If our own democracy is the reason for our downfall, we will have to accept it. Now, I'm not entirely sure what these decisions are in reference to. They feel loose and disconnected and disjointed. Don't worry, with these reforms, we will be even more popular. I hope it works out, Mr. President. We should continue to the next section. Section 6. This is about the presidential decrees. Reformists demand more limitations to the president's executive powers. Mr. Richter has demanded them to be completely removed. I've suggested to bring some limitations to decrees regarding their applicability. While we keep them, we should try to make sure that they will only be used in emergency situations.
We should make it dependent on an enabling act from the assembly. Sure would make the whole process longer, but as long as we have a majority, nothing really changes.
I don't think presidential decrees need any reforms. We'll work with the reformists to limit the use of decrees. I may need to think a bit longer about this. Alright, so the decrees, being in charge of the decision-making, is quite important. I don't think presidential decrees need any reforms. We'll work with the reformists to limit... I think we may need to think about this a bit longer.
Sure, we'll have a long time before we start writing the final proposal together.
Next one is Section 7, term limits. Oh, I don't aim to leave anytime soon. We need the unlimited terms. Term limits are necessary. I agree, we can't allow somebody like Sol holding onto his seat for 2 decades again.
Hey, if people keep electing one person, that means they really are content. The masses are scared of change.
Even Sol knew he had to leave, but we will leave it to the president to decide. Yes, he did, but it took a long time. I agree, people should be able to elect the same person if they want to. I will take my time and seriously consider the options before settling on one. Alright, so... So I just said term limits are necessary, and I'm like, well, I mean, agree. People should be able to elect the same person if they want to. But it's not a question of want to, it's a question of if they have any other options. Yes, he did, but it took a long time. So we'll have to leave it to the president to decide. It took a long time. Now I'll move on to the 8th section. We are reaching the end. It's a question about the immunity of the judges. While the anti-old guard sentiment is increasing, there are talks of taking away their immunity would give us authority over judiciary. I do not support taking away the power for yourself, Mr. President. Not support taking away their power for yourself. The judiciary must be independent and long-lasting. While I agree the current court members are problematic, this is no way to resolve it. The law is supposed to ensure the judiciary's independence by giving legal protection so they can't be pressured.
Well, they need absolute they need absolute immunity in theory, but look at what reality got us. We got to deal with the most corrupt Chief Justice in the world with no chance to deal with him. We should respect their immunity. We should be able to... They should be able to be impeached. Why do I get to be impeached but not them? We should crush the old guards to clear ways for further reforms. Maybe we shouldn't make the Supreme Court our enemies just yet. They should be able to be impeached just like I am. Exactly. But if we... it would be tougher to persuade the judges with this. Miss Edmonds may not want to cooperate with you if they believe they're going to get rid of them afterwards. And the last one is the question about Saul's legacy. Basically, his Member of Honor law, it gave him absolute immunity even when he's retired. He is permanent member of the Assembly as well, but luckily he doesn't really attend anymore. According to the Constitution, the Member of Honor not only has legal immunity, but the state also covers most of their expenses, as well as providing security at all times. It can only be given to someone by an absolute majority vote in the Assembly and the approval of the President. That's why only Tarquin Sol has that title. He gave it to himself right after his military coup. This law is basically made to save the Colonel, and it has a symbolic importance for Sordland because of it. We must get rid of this senseless law that protects him. He should be able to face justice for the atrocities that have taken place during his rule. I agree, we should abolish this position. No, I think we should respect this law. We should keep the title, but take away the immunity clause. Every president should gain that title after their term. Nah, I agree we should abolish this position. The reformers would be completely behind that. Well, regardless of what Mr. Rayne decides, we will need to work together to push this agenda. Start working on the draft. I thank you all for your input. Start working on the draft. Okay, let's see here. According to Article 77 and 82, Section 1, the President may veto a bill by returning it to the Assembly with a written statement. The article do not contain any information on how to override a veto. The articles do not contain any information on how to override a veto. As a consequence, the President has an absolute veto power that cannot be overridden. Okay, let me read the news first. Lockhaven Times. Preparations underway for the annual Benfey Festival. It's that time of year again, the largest cultural festival in the entire Sordland. Benfey Festival has begun its preparations. This year's venue has picked to be the newly built Benfey High Arts Center with a total capacity of 8,000 people. For those who do not have tickets, can, as always, enjoy the events that span the whole city, especially after the recent events. We can't wait for 4 days of panels, theater plays, expeditions, and music. Cool, that's so very irrelevant. Alright, so, back to the constitutional changes. So, right now we're writing the absolute history. We're writing the new constitution, and I'm unfortunately in charge of it. So, remove the veto. So the whole presidential veto thing, I'm just not for. It just doesn't sound good, you know? No one should have absolute power. No one should be in charge. No one should be immune to fuck all. New constitution will not include veto powers. The president may not block any legislation passed by the Grand National Assembly of Sordland. Limit vetoes. New constitution will allow the Grand National Assembly to override a veto with a 3-5 majority. See, I'm actually far more of this. I'm not going to remove the veto. Absolute veto power. No. We need some ability to veto. We need some ability to say, no, that's fucking stupid. But only if the majority agrees. Now, this can be abused later, but it is far more democratic. Limit the vetoes. According to Article 5 of the Constitution, an amendment may be proposed by members of the Assembly with at least 150 signatures. A 2/3 majority vote in the Grand National Assembly and a simple majority vote in the Supreme Court is required for the amendment. As a consequence, the Supreme Court, which is not part of the elected legislative branch, has enormous power in the amendment process. There are no options here. Remove Supreme Court's vote. A constitutional amendment will not require the vote of the Supreme Court. This will remove the judiciary's legislative powers. Ooh, okay, alright. This is interesting. This is very interesting.
Section 3. Impeachment process. According to Article 17, the President of Sordland is not responsible for the actions performed in the exercise of presidential duties, except in the case of high treason or violation of the Constitution. In such cases, the President may be impeached by the Supreme Court in joint session with an absolute majority of its members. Therefore, the impeachment process only includes the Supreme Court, and it gives great power over the executive. Okay, I didn't register a lot of that, which is kind of a shame. It's sort of going to dictate how the game goes. The Assembly and the Supreme Court may impeach. The President may be impeached by a two-thirds majority vote in the Grand National Assembly and the Supreme Court. The Assembly may impeach. The Assembly may impeach. The President may be impeached by a two-thirds majority vote in the Grand National Assembly and the Supreme Court. I want everybody to be on that one. Alright, according to the Constitution, the President appoints the ministers of the Council of Ministers from elected members of the Assembly. This requires no confidence vote from the Grand National Assembly. Confidence vote will be required. The President may nominate ministers, which will require a confidence vote from the Grand National Assembly for their appointment. Grand National Assembly nominates the ministers. Grand National Assembly may nominate a list of ministers which the President may appoint. Okay, we're gonna go with God, this is an interesting one. President appoints some ministers and to the Council of Ministers from elected members of the Assembly. This requires no confidence vote. Yeah, no, there should be talks between the two groups. May nominate ministers, which will require a confidence vote. Grand National Assembly may nominate ministers, which the President may appoint. So it's a case of either President decides or the Assembly decides. Both have their problems, but I feel as though confidence vote may be required. The President decides and the Grand Assembly agrees. That feels right to me. According to Section Article 50, a political party needs a minimum of 10%, a total national vote to win seats in the Grand National Assembly. The votes of the parties who pass the threshold are redistributed proportionally, meaning USB, which currently holds the lead, would be the main beneficiary. The new Constitution will have a 8% threshold for political parties. This may allow the Workers' Party of Bludia and the Communist Party of Sordland to be elected in the next elections. Didn't it start at 5? So 10%. So it started at 5 as far as I'm aware. Political party needs a total national vote. Codex. Go home. Search for 10%. Search results. Assembly. Grand National Assembly. Those people. Piss them off even further, or keep... I think I'm going to stand by the 10%. I think I'm going to stand by the 10%. I think that. I really, really do. 8% would be fine, probably, but I think I'm going to stay by 10. Okay. Presidential decrees. The President is able to issue decrees on political, social, and economic issues that would carry the force of the law. They could not contradict the Constitution and are subject to judiciary review. Therefore, the President may issue decrees in many subjects without going through the Grand National Assembly. However, the Assembly may pass legislation on the same subjects to override presidential decrees. Decrees require an enabling act. The President will not be able to issue decrees that could carry the force of the law without an enabling act from the Grand National Assembly. The President will not be able to issue decrees that would carry the force of the law. Oh, no, definitely not remove. I like the enabling act one. According to the Constitution, the President shall be elected for 4 years. However, there is no mention of a term limit, allowing one individual to be able to run, be elected, and serve as President without limits. So here's the situation. Here's what I think. I think no person should be elected to the office of the President more than twice. I think it's not so much term limit as the election year limit. I think you can serve. I think it should be that you can serve any number of terms, but the terms can be fluid, I guess you could say. Though that's probably my Canadian law brain at work there, because that's sort of our system. You can be reelected as many times as people keep voting for you, but and there is no year limit either. You just get voted for. There's no 4 years specifically. I think the 4 years should be what changes, and then keep the term limit at unlimited. No person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. Do not change. I think it's important. I think it's very important that people can vote for who they want to, if they want to. Alright, the Constitution gives the justices of the Supreme Court total immunity and describes no procedure of impeachment, making them untouchable by the other branches of government. Supreme Court justices may be proposed to be impeached on the legal grounds of unconstitutional behavior. A valid impeachment proposal will require a 2/3 majority decision of the Grand National Assembly to impeach the individual judge. Well, that sounds amazing. Like, yeah, they're just like, oh, the president will get rid of us. But no, like, they get rid of them. But this sounds actually really, really good. Okay, alright, here's the situation. Article 99 of the Constitution defines a Member of Honor title. Its appointment procedure, as well as the rights of the members may exercise, a Member of Honor has absolute immunity and is considered to be a permanent member of the Grand National Assembly. They are given control of their own personal security team, provided by the state's presidential guards. A member is also eligible to live in a separate private residence, provided by the state for free. The only person who holds the title is Tarquin Sol. Abolish honorary membership. Article 99 and the Member of Honor title will be removed from the Constitution. Every president is an honorary member. Abolish immunity of honorary members. A Member of Honor will no longer have this one. Just get rid of it entirely. Are you sure you want to make the constitutional changes to Sordland? Are you sure about your decisions? Not really. After I made the final changes for the proposal, I showed it to my team. They read the changes and discussed it amongst themselves. Lucian spoke afterwards. Looks like the amendments are ready to be proposed. Any comments before we proceed? I will say that I do not agree with the new law that gives the Assembly the power to impeach the judges of the Supreme Court. I am also against the Chief Justice and his obstructionist behavior, but even if we get rid of all of them, the new justices will be less independent with this law. They will be scared to go against the administration when it's needed. They need the protection to do their job, otherwise the new ones will be pawns just like Sol's old guards. But it's more important that we get rid of the old guards, Miss Morgana. After the obstacles are gone, we can strive to make it better. However, he turned to me. You have to be careful, Anton. I'm sure you will be fine, but with all that's happening out there, we'll need to prepare against these threats one way or another. I'm aware. I appreciate your feedback, Peter. Constitution's not yet changed. We'll prepare in the meantime. I appreciate the feedback, Peter. Well, I think we can proceed now. I will personally work on the wording of the proposal with my hand-picked legal experts. With Miss Morgana's reputation as the most experienced attorney, I want that to be a fucking TV show title. This proposal will be bulletproof. Chief Justice Orso will have a hard time convincing others to oppose it. In the meantime, you must introduce this proposal to our party. You will need to get them to back us if we want to pass the Assembly. Sir, I advise you to first talk to the leaders of both conservative and reformist wings of the party. As far as I'm aware, Mr. Clavin supports the reforms already. Miss Tory will be the real problem. She becomes the real heavy weight after we left the executive. Any advice in regards to dealing with them? Any advice for the speech? As Mr. Vectorn said, Mr. Clavin will be, probably be easier to persuade. We need to unite the party under this, so his support is vital. Miss Gloria will be tougher to break. The problem is that she's capable of turning the moderates and the conservatives against us. As much as I don't want to say this, if she makes demands to change the proposal, you may need to give in. Thanks for the advice. Thanks for the advice. Wish you good luck with the party, sir. I think we can end the meeting here. We all shook hands and left the room. Alright, well, that's one hell of a situation to find yourself in. Sordland today. Rayne leading promised reforms. Our sources informed us that the plan is underway by the government to start the drafting of the reform package. Finally, we seem to have a president pursue something significant in the early days of his term. President Rayne is already proving that he is the right man for the job, as rumors circulate about successful talks about a future proposal in collaboration with important figures from the PFJP. This is a significant development that shows that this administration is listening to the will of Sordish citizens. We hope that, once the constitutional changes are approved, it will be the start of a new era for our country toward a bright future. Absolutely, Sordland today. But that will be it for this one. Read the report from Holsort. Reform Committee started preparation. Anyway, let's take a look. Turn 3. I have signed a draft constitutional change package to reform the country. That'll have to be for this one. We always go a little over in this one, and that's unfortunate. The economy is shitting itself. The budget is worse than it was, and the wealth is where it started. So anyway, that'll have to be for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. I, of course, am Keywii. You've been great tuning yourself. Have a delightful day. I love you all. Goodbye. Hopefully I didn't fuck up the country.